This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, let's do it. Good morning, my brother. How you doing? How you feeling?
What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing good. Cannot complain. By the way, that picture that we have of you, which is obviously famous for you with the smirk, where did that start? That sideways smile of yours that became kind of like your signature. Do you remember?
Yeah, I mean, probably when I was 4. My mom still talks about that. I have 2 boys, 7 and 8, and the oldest definitely smirks just like I do when he's like, kind of happy or like just acknowledging something good. It's kind of funny. I mean, yes, like that's many people bring that up, and the fact that it has now been passed on to at least one of my children is, kind of funny and interesting, I would say.
Yeah, it's you and what's her name? Was it Kayla Maroney or something? Right? Was that the gymnast?
She had
right?
a moment. I remember she was
right. She had
was
her
one of the
smirk
first,
too, right?
one of the first people to get memed, I believe.
Yes, exactly. I'm with you. So I want to ask you something. How far have the Jets fallen in the AFC East? Because I'm watching the Dolphins made a lot of good moves. Plus, they've won 9 and 10 games the last 2 years. So they're actually a decent team. The Patriots are a decent team. We know the Bills are the class of the division. And we just heard, I guess their trade offer to DK Metcalf fell short or something. So how far have the Jets fallen in the AFC East?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm sure there are teams calling on DK Metcalf. I know, it's something Seattle has dealt with. I don't get any sense that Seattle wants to trade DK Metcalf. I mean, and then some of the teams mentioned as possibilities. I mean, I know the Jets would be potentially a possibility there. But the others, like, people think the Packers may trade for Metcalf. Like, okay, well, if they weren't sure about paying Devonta Adams all that money, then they're going to trade for someone else's receiver to pay him all that money. Like, I know he's younger, but anyway, there's still a lot to be decided there. I don't get the sense they want to trade him at all. As far as the Jets, I mean, yes, I think they've probably fallen a little bit, but I'm not, to me, they're still probably where they should be because they're still like a year away from really, really competing. And, this is supposed to be a transition year. It's supposed to be a year you build on. Maybe you get 7 wins and you say, all right, the quarterback took a big step. We have 7 wins. Next year is the year we kind of go for it. Otherwise, what the Jets could end up being is one of those teams that spends a lot of money in free agency or spends a lot of draft capital, for instance, and doesn't have a lot to show for it. Like, that's not what you want because that is what happens when, that the result of that is generally you end up cutting guys 2 years out.
It's just I have a hard time believing they're going to be better this year in the win column when the division is that much better. That's the problem.
And I do think the division is better. And, it's interesting for the Dolphins because I think they did get a lot better personnel-wise. They have a new coach. They have not a new defensive coordinator, but Brian Flores is now no longer going to be heavy-handed in the defense since he no longer works for the Dolphins. So, how much better are they going to be than last year? I mean, last year they had, 9 and 8, right?
Yeah. They're a 9 and 10 team the last 2 years.
Pretty solid year. So,
yeah, dude, if Mike McDaniel figures things out and gets them to be a decent offense, your defense actually should be better because that means your offense is on the field more,
right?
And you're scoring more points. Really, it's proven it's a 9 or 10 win team the last 2 years. So you just fix the offense, you might be 11 or 12.
Right. And to me, like, based on where the Dolphins are, the personnel they brought in, the changes they've made, like, they kind of have to be, right? I mean, they have set up the expectations to where they need to be very good. And it's going to be interesting, early on in the season, it's going to be fascinating because if they are not kind of where everyone expects, like, how does the public react? How do the Dolphins fans react? Internally, how do the Dolphins react? Because I think that's, Mike McDaniel is an awesome X's and O's guy. He has not yet been a head coach. Now, I imagine he'll kind of shrug and move on like he does with most things. His demeanor seems to be really good for this situation, but still he's never been through it, so you really don't know.
Let me ask you something. When it comes to JC Tretter and the greed factor goes, Dolphin fans get Gordon Gecko on you here,
Yep.
and they keep asking me about JC Tretter, and he's hanging out there, and there's some talk about an injury issue or something along those lines, and he is up there a little bit in years, but dude, he's a heck of a player. Why is he still out there, Ian? Is he asking for too much? Is there an injury concern? What's going on with JC Tretter?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more he hasn't gotten the money that he wants, right? So, if you're a veteran and you've been through it and you don't really need to go to OTAs or minicamp, honestly, like you might as well just wait. And I think for Tretter, like he's experienced enough where, he's going to be fine. It's not like he needs to come in and learn a scheme. Like he'll handle it perfectly. It just has not gotten the money he wants. And I think he's at the point in his career where if he doesn't get the money he wants, he could just retire.
Wow.
Just step away and say, like, all right, I'm good. Like, I made a lot of money. I'll go to the next phase, which I assume will be focusing on being NFLPA president, whatever else he wants to do. Like, that's where he is in his career because he's a really smart guy and he's made a lot of money. So if you're going to sign him, like, you're really going to have to pay for it.
All right, Ian Rapoport joining us here in our Slomin's look around the NFL. Miami does not pick till, I think, the 102nd pick, which is late in the third round. And I was talking about this yesterday. Noah Igbenogany now. You drafted him because you had that offseason where X ended up having the domestic issue, the knee injury, and you signed him to a long-term contract.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you had all those issues and you had to draft Noah as an insurance policy. Now that you've signed Noah, now that you've signed X to that long-term contract, maybe Byron Jones next year could be moved, but what do they do with Noah? And is there any chance that somebody would trade for him that might have liked him also in the draft a couple of years ago? Because it's going to be a while before the young man actually gets real play on the field to find out whether he can play or not.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he pushes at least one of those guys for playing time. But the Byron Jones issue is interesting because he's injured right now. I think he should be okay, but you don't really know. So, if you believe that Noah Igbenogany could even possibly maybe become a starting corner, he is still very cheap. So to me, those are not the guys you want to trade. Worst comes to worst, he's a special teamer who fills in on defense for not a lot of money. So to me, if you're going to trade him, like you're not going to get a 1. Maybe you'd get a 5. So like, is that worth it in a trade? Or could he potentially do more things to make you say, like, all right, now we see why we drafted this guy number 1. Now, I mean, I would also say that it's a different regime. So a lot of times what happens is the old draft picks that the old people picked sort of fall by the wayside, except the GM is still there. So, we don't know who really was the impetus behind picking Igbenogany. But anyway, to answer your question, like, guys on cheap contracts are probably the guys you want to keep around just in case.
Okay. Ian, what happens with this Washington mess, man? Because in a way, I've talked about it on the show. It's kind of twofold, right? Down here with what's going on with Stephen Ross, whether he did pay for lose or whatever, if he did offer to Flores or not, we all know Flores is going to need some hard evidence. But the bottom line is the league doesn't want any of this to ever be true because it's more important to protect the shield than the Washington logo or the Dolphin logo in
Right.
either case. So what happens in this Washington situation now that this gentleman, said that maybe they were withholding money from visiting teams in the league? So what are you hearing about all of this? Because at one point or another, the owners have to say, all right, we got to protect the shield, but we can't keep tolerating what's going on in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, it's really depends on, is it true or not? I mean, for someone associated with Congress to leak this to, a publication, Front Office Sports, or however this has gotten out, it makes you wonder. Someone thinks something is true. I don't know what it is, but somebody thinks something is true. And that is at least interesting. Right now, if I would say, the Washington Commanders are in a similar situation to where Stephen Ross is, because if it is true, the consequences are dire. Like, they are extremely, extremely serious. We just don't know if they're true or not yet. And I think, the league is investigating Stephen Ross. They're investigating the tanking allegations, all of that. And, to me, like, it's not that difficult, assuming people save their text messages, especially when they're sensitive, like, should be able to figure it out pretty quickly. And, I think in the case of, Stephen Ross, it would be when everyone left the meeting, did everyone text each other? And would that corroborate what he allegedly said in the meeting? With Daniel Snyder, it's probably a little more difficult to show, like, did he really have 2 books or whatever they allege or not? But Congress is on it. And when Congress is on it, the investigation is really kicking into gear. And whatever they find, I mean, they start one place, they could end up in a different place. And whatever they find, they find.
Ian, before I let you go, what is happening with the Deshaun Watson situation? How is the league looking at this? Because the judge now is requiring Watson to answer questions about consensual sex. So is the league still leaving this kind of open about what kind of suspension he's probably facing? And is it a guarantee that there will be a suspension for Deshaun Watson in 2022?
I would say it is not a guarantee. It feels like it's headed that way, but I do not know for sure. And I don't think anybody does. I mean, I know teams involved were bracing for it, knowing that it could be a possibility. But until the civil case is over, then I don't know what we're going to know. And it seems like the league has still not talked to Deshaun Watson when it comes to their investigation. So there's still a lot to be determined. Now, the league has, not often, but has at times decided something before civil is over. So, like, this all could be figured out at some point soon. We just don't know what it's going to be. But suspension is possible. I think teams are aware. Could it be 4 games, 6 games, half a season? No games, I would say, seems unlikely. But, nobody really knows. And it's, in a way, like, Cleveland obviously answered a big question for their quarterback going forward, but the looming suspension creates a lot more questions as well.
Follow him on Twitter at RapSheet, and of course, catch him on the NFL Network. The man is constantly breaking stories, and you can catch him once a week here with our Slomin's look around the NFL. Ian, thank you, my brother. I will hopefully see you. We'll talk next week, but hopefully see you in Vegas. We want to get you over to Tommie Rock. All right.
I look forward to it, man. Take care. Thank you,
brother. Be good. You got it. There you go. Ian Rapoport, baby. Our Slomin's look around the NFL.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.